Welcome to the Richard Stewart Show. My name is Richard Stewart. I'm a former national team player for the Canadian national team who won a silver medal for Canada in the 91 games in Sheffield, England. I also played at St. Joseph's University NCAA Division I in the Atlantic 10 Conference.
Stewart again down the lane, no foul, they let him have it. Richard has 19.
Currently, I own Advanced Basketball Canada, a program that teaches kids how to play basketball from the fundamentals to the more advanced. Two of the notable players that I've trained are Dillon who plays for the Memphis Grizzlies,
and Brooks will go and jam it with the right hand off the setup by Moran.
And Ignas Brazdeikiz,
Brazdeikiz to steal, some contact, and we play on. Brazdeikiz,
who plays for the New York Knicks. I also train ladies, and the ladies that are in university and have played in Europe as well. So I have a lot of ladies who have trained and are playing basketball. Welcome to the Richard Stewart Show. My name is Richard Stewart. Hey, true believers, we're back at it again. And I have a great guest for you today, Mr. Ro Russell. And my co-host is Kayla Davis. Now, what happened over this last year? The pandemic happened, everyone was shut down for a while, right? And think about it, no sports, can't visit your friends and family. So we were all in a situation where we had to adjust. Think about what the government did though. They came on, and what did they do? They gave checks to people. But what happened when the teachers needed money? And what happened when the healthcare workers needed money? No money was there for them. Isn't that funny? And what happened to the flu, by the way? Remember when we had the flu? Everyone was dying from the flu. Now no one dies from anything but COVID. Interesting stuff going on. I always like to ask those questions. In the world of sports, the Lakers with LeBron are at the top of the heap. And again, this year, they may make it back again, although LeBron is injured right now. Would I be remiss if I didn't give kudos and say God bless frontline workers and those essential workers who are helping us to stay healthy and to keep us fed and safe. So God bless those frontline workers. My co-host Kayla is a renowned basketball player, all right? She is a Canadian national team point guard, a great basketball player, athletic, can shoot it, can pass it, great vision, and she went to Xavier University, which was in the Big East. Great basketball player, great analytical mind, so I want her to be my co-host, and you'll see much more of her. On my right here is Mr. Ro Russell. Everybody in Toronto knows who Ro Russell is. The advent of AAU coming out of Canada, the guy who made a lot of kids get an opportunity to play NCAA basketball and forward from there. And I respect him immensely, and so help me to introduce Mr. Ro Russell.
Thanks, how you doing?
All right, man. Great to have you in the house. Great to have you here. So, Ro, one of the things I want to know from you, the first question I have for you, grassroots, how did that come about?
Grassroots came about from my early stages of being in the trenches at the community centers, at the house, talking to the parents, helping the kids tutoring. So I was always at the grassroots level.
Okay.
I went to the kids, and then it just naturally came where, grassroots,
Cool names. Okay. Nice. So doing grassroots, you went into the AAU circuit in America. When you took your first team down there, did you guys compete with those kids? Were any of your kids intimidated? Because, coming from Canada early on, some of the Americans were a bit braggadocious, and they threw some guys off. Obviously not you and I. We know what we do. We go and we ball. So how do you fare down there in the first
Well, we were our first time going to the U.S. Back in '89. We were called Toronto Elite.
Okay.
Before grassroots.
Okay.
And we went to Buffalo first just to test the waters because we're there's something out there because everyone's going to a Canadian university and they're really good players, and I'm like, there's got to be somewhere else. So when I had played myself, and I went to the States to a Division II school.
Yes.
Then that opened my mind to what was out there. So I was like, I want to get back there because I kind of found out when I was playing and so forth that there's AAU, and there was this OBA at the time.
Okay.
And so I was like, let's test it out. Let's go to Buffalo. Let's go to Detroit and see how that is.
Okay.
And then after that, we started to venture to further cities like New York, Philly, Chicago, Ohio, different places like that. And I remember one of our early tournaments in '91 when Alvin Williams played for Team Philly, and we played against them in the semifinals because we were doing good up until that point. And then they were up by 35 on us.
Wow.
And they still had the press on. They still have their starters on.
Wow.
They're still throwing alley-oops and dunking it and clapping and joking and everything. There's no sportsmanship at all. It was like, I'm going to crush you and send you back to Canada.
Wow.
And then that always stuck in my head that, okay, now I know what it's all about. Now I see the big difference between Canadian basketball and American basketball.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even with leading with that, from going in those early, late 90s, depending on that, and moving on to the future, or even just your previous experience in the past couple of years, what's the difference been in terms of competing, or what you just think of the future of Canadian basketball is right now?
Well, I think they've now once they I think the difference is or the similarities is once we went down there and established that whole deal of going to the States and competing and how hard it is and how competitive it is, and then people starting to follow my steps. Then they understood how hard you got to play defense, because back then we had like a stereotype of we're soft, we don't play defense, we're not that level. And eventually we got to that level where yes, a lot of us could play defense, a lot of us could go hard, a lot of us could play, and then it went from there, and it kind of saturated it and went from there. So yeah.
One of the things I want to know from you is, can you give us an estimated number? I know how many kids you've helped, and a guy like you who's a mentor and a coach has helped so many kids get an education. Well, let me back up a little bit. I met John Chaney. God rest his soul. He passed away.
Yes.
John Thompson, God rest his soul, he passed away. I put you in that light. You know why? Because those guys gave a lot of African-American kids opportunities for an education. Remember, a lot of our parents couldn't afford $100,000 or $20,000 a year to send a kid to university.
Yeah,
so unless you got an A scholarship or academic scholarship, not everybody's an A student. So I want to know, from your perspective, just like they did, they give a lot of people opportunities to get an education and make a good life for their families. How many kids do you think has come to your program who has gone to university and who has made it on to NCAA or pro?
In thinking about the number of guys that I've helped that have gone to NCAA or pro, it's almost 500 for guys, like 497 or 8.
Wow.
And for girls, it was probably like 192.
Wow.
And then 3 girls went to WNBA, and like 11 guys went to the NBA.
Wow, that's a great number.
I had a hand in developing, training, coaching, those kind of things.
Well, you know something? Kayla is in that game now. She's a young lady who's now into the development and skills training for men and women, and she's training some high-level basketball players as well. So she's just now coming into that flow of, we're helping people to get to the next level, and the love of that, and why that's important to help the other next generation coming up. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Tell me a little bit about your people that you train, Kayla, because you have some really good basketball players that I see coming up through your system.
First of all, I definitely agree with that, Richard. And for me, when it comes to skill development, it's a combination of respecting, every person has their journey, and regardless of what level they get at, you're able to still give them productive ability to continue to keep on going, regardless of what level that is. So I've worked with super young kids, high school, college, and then some guys that have been in the CEBL, and recently Marcus Anderson. He's been working with the Nighthawks, the Guelph Nighthawks. So with me, every time I'm doing something, I'm learning more as I continue to grow, but then also making sure that every time I step in a room, especially as a woman, like making sure that I'm representing women and female correctly, because it's a field where I'm big on respect is, definitely earned and not given. So you got to do the homework for that. Yeah, so I always try and come prepared, to make sure that I try and eliminate as much doubt and questions that are asked. But yeah, I think even for me personally now, with you mentioning that, what do you think one of your greatest accomplishments has been as a coach or mentor?
One of my biggest accomplishments, I think, is back in 2008, teams were going to AU, and it was a natural thing. This is before the circuits and all that stuff. And I think that before, people thought that Division One, Canada had Division One players, but didn't have pros yet. Like, we haven't got to that level because there's like a big hiatus between like a Jamal McGlure and like the next guy.
Well, you think about Bill Wellington from out west. I mean, he made it through there as a big man. But
that was back then. That was back in the 80s and the early 90s. And then between Jamal McGlure and Steve Nash, there was
a big hiatus. You're right.
Yeah, there's a big gap there. And so they were like, okay, those guys got through, but that's it. Canada only has a couple guys here and there. And in 2008, we were able to, break the basketball barriers for them to say, okay, there's pros in Canada. Because, we had Tristan Thompson and Corey Joseph and a young Knicks last year, a young Andrew Wiggins, Dwight Powell, Brady Hessler.
But you know something, like you're calling those names. You're calling those names. But I remember that back in my day, back in the late 70s, 80s, there are some guys who can ball.
Yeah,
I mean, guys like Rocket Llewellyn could have went pro. I mean, there's guys like
if I did AU,
David Alexander.
If they did AU
David
back
Joseph.
in the day, because you got to be in the platform.
Yeah.
Being on the platform, like we went all the way in the Adidas Super 64. We're on TV. Where the scouts are there.
Yes.
The shoe company are there. The mixtape guys are there, and that was the platform. And if those guys, like the guys you're talking about, Patrick Jefferson, and yourself even, and guys like that, they would have had a chance to get in there, to get drafted in the first or second round, to be a free agent, to go to summer league, to do all those things. And so, I remember coaching Greg Francis at Oakwood.
He was a good player.
And he could really shoot the ball, and he proved that he had 32 against North Carolina in the first round of the tournament. And so there's some guys that should have gotten the opportunity, but unfortunately, legitimate AAU didn't start until I saw like we gotta do something. There's guys up here, there's girls up here.
There's girls up here.
Let's do something.
Yeah. So Kayla, tell me something. When you heard Ro Russell's name as a young person growing up in the city, from everything he's just said, what was your idea? What do you think about what he has done for basketball, the landscape of basketball in Toronto, Canada as a whole?
Yeah, he's a name that's just synonymous with basketball in Toronto, GTA, Canada, whatever you want to say, because before I even, like I said, met you personally, I've known so many people that have been coached or have been influenced by you on the boys' side and on the women's side. So when you think of like people that are waiting for opportunities to happen versus someone that's going to be like, hey, like, I see that there's talent here, I'm going to go out and do something about it, like those are the type of people that we need to continue to have and that you kind of set the path for. So it's good to be able to just have conversations about it so people, don't forget, because it's something that we I don't want to say we take for granted, but a lot of these kids are extremely blessed with the opportunity for the prep schools and all that thing now, but there was a starting point and that you represent that, so for sure.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. See, that's why I brought her, because she's young, but she knows a little bit about that, and we just want to make sure we give him props. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ro Russell, and I tell you what, he's done a lot of work in the trenches for a lot of kids who have opportunities now. I remember when I was coming up, you had to make your own way. There wasn't a platform, so you had to score 30, 40 points a game in order to be on that platform for them to recruit me. Guys like Phil Dixon after me were getting shoeboxes full of offers because guys like me, Wayne Yearwood went before me to West Virginia. So by the time I got there down to St. Joe's and playing against West Virginia, playing against Miami, playing against those type of schools, Villanova, University of Pennsylvania, those type of schools, there was a couple of guys ahead of me, but then I blew the doors open, and then guys like you are the ones that I want to celebrate. That's why I have them on the show, guys. This is some good stuff. All right, tell me something about the girls that you train, because I see some of the girls, they're going to Syracuse, and you have one at Connecticut. That's a monster. All right, tell me about that part of your program.
Yeah, so my sister is the one that taught me how to play basketball, because I used to play hockey back in the day.
All of us did.
I lived in a predominantly white area, so there was just hockey. So you just you want to play something, but you played hockey.
Yes.
So after, so I always had girls in my heart. My mother, my sister, my grandmother, all that stuff. So I was around, as a young guy from Jamaica growing up. You always had a lot of women in your life.
That's right. That's
so
right. That's
you
right.
always had that mentality of look out for women and all that stuff.
Right. That's what
so when I started guys, I had one gym where the guys were doing their thing, and then I had another gym where the girls were doing their thing.
Great.
And then sometimes I would have some of the girls that excel come and play with the guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that really helped them to get tougher and get confident and really learn some things and I remember a funny thing I want to mention. One time, this girl named Donna Cameron, and this light-skinned girl, and I had her playing with the guys all the time because she had like a chip on her shoulder, like I'm just as good as the guys. Let me go over there, like She's kind of the one that made me think like, okay, I'll let some girls go over, because back in the day you're like, well, maybe keep them separate. I don't know if they can athletically play that level, but she was like, let me go over there. Then I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. So she would always play with the guys, and I used to bring Division I coaches up, because back then you could bring college coaches to your AAU practices.
Yes.
So I brought this Division II school up, and Donna, she has short hair, right? So from the back, she looks like a guy.
Okay.
So she was cooking the guys. You know what I'm saying? She was giving it to them.
Giving it to them,
so
huh? Yes.
the coach is like calling me over, like, bro, who's that guy? Okay, I want to give him a scholarship.
What?
Then I'm like, who, Donna? And he's
like, what?
You know what I'm saying? So therefore, that's how we did it at the beginning, and guys and girls are getting scholarships just from practices.
Wow.
Because their high school program wasn't set up like that back then, where they had the contacts and had the situation to bring coaches up, and coaches weren't really feeling, is there girls up there like that? Maybe there's one or two. And so I'm not really gonna go all the way to Canada. But after those days, then more coaches start coming up, because like, hey, she's from Canada, she's pretty good. And then it went all the way through. And then my daughter Leanna will say, she I started training her at 8 years old, and
she's a fabulous coach, guys. Leanna is a fabulous coach.
So she was training at like, she was 15 training.
I remember when I first came back here in 2006, and I saw her at Falstaff, Chalk Farm, Driftwood Community Center. That corridor. Women played basketball with us. I remember in Chalk Farm Community Center.
A lot of talent there, and you had to go down there in the trenches, in the grassroots level, to find them and nurture them.
And the girls played with us, because if I picked girls on my team, we had,
they did their job.
Nine guys, and there's a girl there.
I remember another story that you say that makes me laugh all the time. So there's a girl named Kalisha Keen, right? And she used to come to, because she was good enough and strong enough to play with the guys. So she used to come and play with the guys all the time, because her little younger brother played for me as well. And she was playing one day, and she was killing this one kid, just killing him. And like, as a player, as a coach, I'm saying, okay, that's good. That's good for her that she's killing you, but you play my AAU team.
You should be.
You know what I mean? I'm going out to the States. And, you're playing people who are bigger, stronger, quicker, taller than her. You're supposed to hold your own. She might do some things, but you got to do some things back. But she was holding him on defense. She was killing him on offense. And I remember I felt bad, but I was so mad. And I ended up cutting him from that.
No way.
From her killing him. Because I was like, I can't bring you to the States.
She's cooking you.
She's cooking you. At least show her. At least step up and do something. Because how are you supposed to go Division I, right? So anyway, girls basketball is right there with me, with working with girls and guys. Like I'm a big proponent of girls basketball, because I've seen it, like from the beginning stages and right there. So I always was a fan of it. Like I remember one time at Falstaff Community Center, Angel McCarthy came up to Falstaff.
You know who she is, Angel?
She was good friends with one of my Naya Daly, and she went to prep school down there in North Carolina. She came before she just signed with Louisville, and she came up to spend some time. And she was dunking up the place. You know what I mean? And guys were like running and saying, "Oh my gosh, did you see this girl in there?" You know what I mean? Like, because that's something you didn't really see a lot, right? Since the first girl I ever saw dunk it.
I saw Lisa Leslie do it. That's the first person I ever seen dunk it.
I saw Petra. You remember Petra?
I've heard this story that Petra can dunk, and I've never heard of her.
I was there at George Harvey, and the whole place jumped up the balcony. She dunked on a breakaway. And guys were on the balcony, and they jumped off the balcony, and they're running around, holding kids, going crazy. Because that's the first time they ever saw a girl. Wow. They saw Cheryl Miller and Lisa Leslie on TV, but not like in their face. Wow. And the girls' game is changing now, because maybe there's one or two girls dunk it, but now at Crestwood, I had two girls this year in 1 year that could dunk
the ball.
You know what I
mean? Two ladies,
so now they can play, because that was always the talk.
Well, hold on. Let me back up a little bit.
Above the rim.
Let me back up a little bit, because you're talking about women's sports. We have an expert here on women's sports. I found that the game that the women play was fundamentally. I like to watch the women play, because it was the right bounce pass. It was the proper jump shot. The ball was swung to the proper person. The jump hook was there. The drop step was there. Do you think that that the women's game is changing so much into more of a physical dunking and all this stuff game that it is losing something, or is it gaining something? Because as you know, 20,000 people go to an NBA game and they say, we're going to pay these guys this amount of money. 10,000 people go to a women's game back in the day and they say, we're going to pay you this because we're not making enough money. Do you think the game is changing now where the women are so exciting, not just fundamentally, but exciting, that they should be paid the same? And how do you look at the game now?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we talk about that, it's mostly a marketing thing. So when it comes to the NBA, they're able to pay that much because the fans that they bring in and the fans and the merchandise and things like that. So in terms of making it more exciting, if we're talking about exciting and you're seeing more women dunk, you're seeing a little bit more athleticism per se, that can only, be a positive thing for the game because it allows, I think, a little bit more wiggle room for marketing, because we see that even when we're talking about NFL and football, big hits, highlight plays, regardless of, we're talking about some people don't even really know the sport well, but they'll end up tuning in to see those things because they're exciting, right?
Yes.
So, and as I'm seeing it more, and you see way more than I think ever now, with female being able to play a little, like women being able to play above the rim, dunking the ball, so it's a positive. And in terms of payment, I mean that can be a whole separate segment because it's a really loaded question. But for me, it is a situation where I think if we continue, people in the basketball community are just encouraging others around us to really support it. Like, all right, if I want a jersey, maybe I go buy a Sue Bird jersey instead of maybe whatever other player.
Kyrie Irving jersey or something, sure.
Making it, I don't want to say making it cool, but why not, especially with my generation that's a little bit younger, you have a lot of these kids that are really bold on social media telling, I don't want to watch that, or, the old get back in the kitchen. So if kids that are that young have that confidence to think that way, then I think there's it would take a lot to kind of change that generational thinking. But it's just a matter of, hey, let's embrace it. I love how the NBA guys are wearing the WNBA hoodies and things like that, because just continuing to bring notoriety and embracing it, because it's like you said, there's reasons why it's like that, but it doesn't mean we can just sit and continue.
I agree with you, ladies and gentlemen. Barack Obama tried to do something for that. He signed the let me start again. We're gonna edit that. Barack Obama did a lot in terms of helping women to get equal pay. Every federal employee now has to get paid the same amount. He signed the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which says that women are supposed to be getting paid the same amount as men who are doing the same work. And so, they're trying on the political end to do that. And we're going to try and do it on the sports end. As Rose said, we respect women. And I've asked women when I was young to come and play with me when we're in the gym. And girls are knocking down jump shots. So we're both, from a culture that says that we respect the women in our lives. So we want them to be paid. I mean, think about a woman going to a dry cleaner and she has to pay more for her blouse to be dry cleaned, and our shirt is less. It's the same amount of material. So there's a lot of stuff ingrained in the system where women are paying more, getting less, and doing more. So I'm about women's rights. I'm there with you, and I'm there in the sports arena too. The great sports contracts with ESPN, ABC Sports. There's money in the system. So now it's moving. I think it needs to move from, okay, just because of how many butts are in the seats, to what's the TV contract. We can, we can get that down to the ladies as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's my piece on the soapbox. Let me move forward from there. Just to wrap up now, where do you think you're going next with everything? I mean, you have Crestwood, you have Grassroots. What are you going to do, run for mayor? I mean, what's next for you, man?
During the pandemic that we've been having, it gives you some time to reflect and think about things and say, okay, I've done this, I've established that. There's guys coming up, there's girls coming up, there's all these things coming up. So now, what's the next challenge? What's the next venture that you want to go into? So there's some things that I'm working on behind the scenes, and that people will know,
upcoming
in due time.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Ro has great things coming down the pike. And you know what? Ro Russell has been around for a long time, and I'm so happy to have him on the program. Ro, tell me about your faith and what keeps you strong and keeps you going through all the adverse things that goes on in life during the pandemic. You have a mom. Tell me what keeps you going, what keeps you strong. What's your faith like?
The number one thing for me, other than my family and my friends and so forth, is the Lord Jesus Christ. That's why they call me the Rev, because I'm that guy that's trying to bring that a part of our practice, our games, or just the morals and values that we extend to these kids and I impart with them. So that's a big part to me, that none of this would have happened I've done some things, over the years, over the decades, but, I'll hold all to the Lord, give him all the glory, and, try to make people know that that's the case, I'll never shy away from that.
There you go. You had it from his mouth to God's ears. Thank you, Ro. And I just want to thank him for being on our show today. What a great guest. We'd love to have him on again. He has so much information. What is your handle? What is your website? Please tell them about where they can find Ro Russell and his training and teams.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Coach Ro Russell. You can find my AAU program, Grassroots, on Twitter at GRC Elite, and on Instagram at We Are Grassroots. And obviously Crestwood is Crestwood Hoops, and go Crestwood, go Grassroots.
I love it. Go Crestwood. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let us thank Ro Russell for being on the program. And you know what we say here at Advanced Basketball: little things turn into big things. God bless you.